Hey there. Yeah, I got another situation. Maybe you can help me with it. Yeah, I was the one that you helped out with that cathedral thing. Remember that? Yeah, similar situation. What I got here, about, 18 little colored sticks, 6 different colors. I got a bunch of them. Don't know what to do with them. Can you help me out? Well, no, we don't own that franchise. Well, yeah, you could do it with TransAmerica and TransEuropa. Then you get one expansion for 2 different games. That's a good idea. Can we come up with some rules to make this work? Okay. And how much can we charge for this little bag of sticks? Wow. Well, that's kind of profit. I think I like this expansion business. Thanks a lot. Hi there! Welcome to Board Games with Scott. This is a regular video series where I take a game and explain it and give you an idea of what I think of it. My goal is to help you decide if it's a game you're interested in purchasing. Now, this episode I'm going to be talking about a good game for anyone. This is a good introductory game. The game I'm going to talk about is called TransEuropa. Now, TransEuropa is the same game as TransAmerica, just with a different map. Both of these games play very much the same. It's whether you want to be looking at geography of the US or geography of Europe. Both games would be good for a school setting because you're going to be learning about geography and where things are on a map. They're easy to play. They're for 2 to 6 players, so they play a wide range. They're short. They only take about half an hour to play, and that's in several rounds. You can play 1 round and be done with the game. So I'm going to talk about TransEuropa. It is the easiest train game that I found out there, even easier than Ticket to Ride. And so this is a game that I'm comfortable introducing anyone to. I don't feel it's going to be too complex for anyone that's comfortable with Monopoly or a basic game like that. So this is a great starter game for people who want to get into games that have a little bit more depth. I'm also going to be talking about an expansion that came out for this fairly recently called Vexation. The Vexation expansion will work for either TransEuropa or TransAmerica. While it's just a bunch of little sticks, it really does change the game. So first thing we're going to talk about the base game of TransEuropa, and then I'll move into talking about the expansion a little bit later. So let's open up this box and see what's inside. So here's what you get in TransEuropa. What you get is a nice board. The board is of Europe and it has this grid overlaid. You get some wooden trains, which are going to be used to mark your score on the scoring track over here on this side. You've got little cylinders, which are used to represent your starting place on the board. You have a bunch of these little black sticks. There's a start card, which is useful for remembering who started a round. And then you have a card for every city on the board. The cards have pictures of famous things from those cities, so there's a little bit of learning you can do in this game. And then you have the rules. The rules are fairly simple in this game. It's just one sheet, front and back, and so that's fairly handy. And that's what you get. It's a nice little game, comes in a small box, but it's a fairly light game and easy to break out in any sort of setting. So how do all these bits work together? Well, let's find out. Now the first thing to notice is that the map is color-coded. So there are colors of cards and they correspond to colors of cities on the map. So blue is down here at the bottom, green is on this side, yellow is on the top, red is over there, and orange is in the middle. To start the game, you're going to randomly shuffle up the cards of each color and give each player 1 card of each color. So each player is going to have a hand of 5 cards. They're going to keep them secret, and again, the cards will be 1 from each of the regions of the map. When you're playing with only 2 or 3 players, you're going to remove all the cards that have these black and white dashed areas around them. That reduces the number of choices on the map and makes it a fairer game for a small group. So you just take those 10 cards out of the game and then play as normal. So let's say these are the 5 cards that I was dealt. The first thing I'm going to do is find where all the spaces are on the map. If I had Plymouth, Rome, Warsaw, Bucharest, and Moscow, I could see that these are my 5 cities, and my goal of the game is to connect these 5 cities using these black tracks. That was a fast one. And so what you're trying to do in the game is you're going to be playing these routes. So as the game goes on, what you're going to get is this network of tracks going across Europe. And your hope is to be able to connect into that network in order to connect your 5 cities before anyone else does. After you've distributed the cards and people figure out where their cities are on the map, you're ready to start. Now the first player will take their station, which are these small cylinders, and put it somewhere on the map. They can go on an intersection if they'd like, or they can go on a city if they like. I typically just plop it down on one of my cities because then I know I've scored that city. and I can move out from there. After everyone places their initial stations, then you're ready to start the regular gameplay. The way it works is on your turn you can place up to 2 tracks, and the way this works is on the board most of the intersections are connected by a single line. So you place 1 track on a line. Now all the track you play has to be connected into your starting station. So on your turn you're going to get to play 2 tracks on single lines. Some of the spaces on the board have a double track, and that means that it takes your entire turn to play 1 track on that space. So if I wanted to go down here into Vienna, I would have to do that, and that would take my entire turn. As the game goes on, you'll begin to approach other people. And when you do that, once the 2 lines are connected, you are then connected to all of this, and you can play off anywhere on this line. So I could play 1 there to connect it up, and then another one I could play way down here if I wanted to head that away on the board. So as the game goes on, players will hook into this large communal line and then use it to try and effectively get to their cities quickly. As soon as one player has connected all 5 cities, which may happen when it's someone else's turn if they connect it for them, then after the player whose turn it is finishes laying their track, you end the round and you score. Now the way you score is that the player who finished first gets no points. Everyone else will get points, and you don't want points. They're a bad thing. So let's say I was the red player, and I had Paris and London in my hand when another player went out. What I do is I count the number of track lines that are keeping me away from my destinations, and that's my score. So in this case, to get to Paris, it's 1, 2, and 3, 2 for crossing that river and 1, and to get to London, it's 1. So my total score with the round would be 4 points, and you don't want points. The first person to get 13 points loses the game. So you track your points on this side track, and for each point you move your train up 1. So as red, I just got 4 points, so 1, 2, 3, 4. The first player to crash off the board loses the game, and then the game's over. So in this game, there's only 1 loser and lots of winners. Hooray! Except for the loser. Boo. They say bad words. At the end of the round, you clear the board of all the tracks and markers and pass the start card to the next player. And then to do the round again, you take all the cards, you sort them by color, shuffle them up, give everyone a card of each color, and you're ready to start the next round. Games usually take 4 or 5 rounds, although they could take more rounds if players are all really close, or fewer rounds if someone really screws up, and you go until someone loses the game. If you want to play a more fair game, but a longer game, then make sure everyone has equal number of turns in each round. You can remember who started the round by the start player card. So that's how you play TransEuropa. Now TransEuropa is a pretty basic game. As it stands, it feels like it's full of luck, although experienced players will tend to beat novice players because they know how to use each other's tracks. But to make the game more interesting, I suggest you look at the expansion Vexation. Now this is what Vexation looks like. It came out fairly recently and it cost about $5, and what you get are sticks in the different players' colors and a little rule sheet. So with Vexation, each player gets 3 sticks of their color. On their turn, rather than playing black sticks, they can choose to play their own color sticks. And they are the only ones that can use that route, which means other players are then going to have to build around taking extra turns to make that connection. As the game goes on, these can be used in fairly nasty ways to really frustrate someone who's trying to get into a city. Now there's one rule to help that. You can only have at most 2 colored sticks going into a city. As soon as there are 2 colored sticks, all the rest of the sticks have to be black sticks that go into the city. But even with that, with smart play of these colors, you can cause someone to have to spend an extra turn playing around. And in this game, 1 turn might be all it needs to be able to win the game. So I found that Vexation really adds a lot to this game. It's very simple. It adds 1 little rule, but it makes a difference. It makes it more of a gamer's game, more of a game where you can be clever and you can be tricky. You can use the sticks and make people say bad words, and you'll find people get into stick fights. If I block you off, you're going to block me off, or you decide to work together and play all black sticks. That's what expansions do. Expansions allow you to breathe new life into a game and allow you to support the company a little bit more. In this case, I highly recommend playing the game with the expansion. With new people, I may play 1 round without the expansion and then add in the expansion in the second round of play, because at that point they're comfortable with how it works and it all works well together. So in this game, I really like it with the expansion. A big thumbs up from me. Other than that, it's the same game at TransEuropa. You play until someone makes connections and connects all their cities. You count how far away you are from your cities, and that's how many points you get. So that's TransEuropa with Vexation. Again, the Transamerica game uses the same Vexation, and it's the same game, it's just on a different map. So you can play whichever one you're more interested in. I find this to be a good game to add to anyone's collection. It's easy to learn, it's fast to play, you can play it with people who say that they don't like games, they don't know a lot of games. This is an easy one to teach, and one of the things I've found is that when you're introducing someone new to these types of games, you want to focus on something that's easy to get into. If you add the vexation component, it really adds a lot to the game. It makes it have some very interesting decisions, some nastiness, makes a big difference in the game. So I recommend both TransEuropa or Transamerica and the Vexation expansion. After I show someone this game, I'm then ready to move up to Ticket to Ride, and then perhaps move on to something more complex like Voldam for Age of Steam, or Railroad Tycoon, or even an 18xx game. And so it's all about the idea of getting people started in a comfortable experience and ramping them up from there. And that brings us to the end of this episode of Board Games with Scott. I know many of you out there who are serious gamers have picked up Transamerica or TransEuropa and poo-pooed it, but I'd say take another look at it with Vexation. It shall unpoo-poo. So with that, I'll thank you for joining me. You can see other episodes of Board Games with Scott over at BoardGamesWithScott.com. Just as a side note, I'm a professor at Syracuse University and I do research on games and libraries, and I've recently started a podcast, audio only, at gamesinlibraries.org. So if you want to see what librarians are thinking about this whole gaming hobby, take a listen. Thank you much, and I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.